So on Saturday, Tennessee traveled to Norman to take on the Oklahoma Sooners in a game that opened up conference play for both teams. And at the end, it was Tennessee that emerged victorious. And today, we've got to talk about it. We need to break down how Tennessee got the win. We need to ask the question, where does Oklahoma go from here, and everything in between. But before we can get to all of that, y'all know the drill. I've got to hear from you. Hop down to the comments, Y for yes, N for no, and today I'm bringing back a question we asked not too long ago, but it feels like an appropriate time to ask. Do the Oklahoma Sooners have something to be concerned about? Let me know what you're thinking. If you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe, hit that bell notification as I do constant college football content. You don't want to miss any of it, and if you enjoyed the content, be sure to like and comment down below as those interactions seem small, they are massive to content creators such as myself. But having said all that, let's jump right into this. And given how we did the pregame video, I think I want to continue in the same fashion, meaning I want to talk about the matchups. Let's start with Oklahoma's defense against this Tennessee offense, because that was what I was so excited to see, and it lived up. Going into this game, I couldn't wait to see the stylistic matchup of Heupel's offense against Brent Venables' defense, especially because whenever Brent Venables took over Oklahoma, there was no semblance of a defense. But this game showed, especially in the defensive front, he's done a really good job of turning the tide there. This was a Tennessee offense that ran all over everybody they played, but against Oklahoma, they really had to work for what they got on the ground. Heck, they had to work for what they got on offense, but specifically on the ground, Tennessee only averaged 2.9 yards per carry. At the end of this, Oklahoma had 3 sacks, 9 tackles for loss, really proving the point that defensive front for the Sooners, it's ferocious. It's the real deal, and they were able to cause chaos. And don't get it misunderstood. I'm not saying that the secondary is bad, but if you're asking me, Ty, what's the best thing about our defense, I'm not going to think twice. The answer for me is that defensive front. They play inspired football, and it showed on Saturday. But there is an unfortunate truth to this, and it's something we saw whenever we saw Georgia take on Clemson. You can have a fantastic defense. It can be made up of fantastic football players. But if your offense doesn't show up, good luck. There's only so long the defense can hold, and quite frankly, I was impressed that Oklahoma's defense held as well as they did, because that offense, for 98% of the night, did absolutely nothing. And unfortunately, that's kind of been a theme on the year for Oklahoma, but we're going to get to that. The point being, I left this game just as impressed, if not more impressed, with Oklahoma's defense than I did going into it, because their offense gave them no help. That defense was on the field for the majority of that game. Tennessee dominated the time of possession, and we talked about time of possession not too long ago. How much weight should you put into it? Well, if you have an offense that's able to score and score quickly, it's super explosive, and so therefore you don't have the ball very long, because you get the ball and within a minute you're in the end zone. You don't need to worry too much about time of possession. Naturally, you would love to do it all. You would love to be able to score quickly and have a dominating style of offense that you can grind it out. But at the end of the day, if you're able to score as soon as you snap your fingers, time of possession isn't that big of a deal. But if you're an offense that can't move the ball, time of possession becomes very important. If you have trouble scoring, that's whenever you don't want to get really behind in that category, and unfortunately Oklahoma did, which is why at the end of this, for OU's defense to hold in the manner that they did, it was impressive. Now, Tennessee did get some big plays. They had some passing plays that were really able to gash this Oklahoma secondary, but it's also Tennessee. This is a very explosive offense with impressive wideouts, impressive running backs, and unfortunately for Tennessee, some offensive linemen who were banged up. I don't have to tell you what that's like, Oklahoma. You know exactly what that's like, and we're going to get to that. So at the end of this, Tennessee wins 25-15, but I cannot blame the defense at all. They did their part. And yes, Tennessee had some big plays in the passing game. Personally, I think if you're going to attack Oklahoma's defense, that's where you attack them, in the passing game. But that defensive front for Oklahoma absolutely showed up and showed out. Now we talk about Tennessee's defense against Oklahoma's offense. And listen, I think that there's two parts to this story. One of them is that we have to give Tennessee's defense credit. This has been a stingy defense all year. The second part, though, and this is the one where both Tennessee and OU fans probably aren't going to like this, OU has had no semblance of an offense all year long. And so whenever we look at this was a game where Oklahoma averaged under 1.5 yards per carry. They averaged 1.1 yards per carry. Now, part of that is a good Tennessee defensive front, and I absolutely acknowledge that. So if you're a Tennessee fan watching this video, please don't take what I'm saying as saying your defense isn't impressive. It absolutely is. Two things can be true at the same time. That one, Tennessee's defensive front absolutely contributed to Oklahoma's inability to run the football, and two, Oklahoma hasn't been able to run the football all year. Quite frankly, when I look at this Oklahoma offense, injuries are a problem. In my opinion, play calling has been a problem. Quarterback play has been a problem. Suffice to say, the offense has been a problem. And not too long ago, when I asked the question, should Oklahoma fans be concerned, my answer was, well, it depends. How soon are you going to be healthy? I was hoping that Oklahoma would be healthy by Tulane. That way they could get the Tulane game under their belt, gel as a unit, and then take that into Tennessee, but that didn't happen. And in fact, in this game, you got maybe your best wide receiver back in Anderson, but he didn't last long in the game before he had re-aggravated the injury and gone out. And I was kind of puzzled to hear the ESPN crew talking about, oh, well, we were watching practice on Thursday, and that happened several times. With a hamstring injury, I was kind of surprised to hear that Oklahoma would even play him if on Thursday the same thing was happening. Now listen, I don't have any inside information on that, but the broadcast did say it clear as day. So whether that's true or not, don't get mad at me. That's what was put out to the world, is that Anderson was going to be a go for this game, but on Thursday, that same thing was happening, that he would run routes and pull up, walk gingerly on it. Those are injuries that they're real easy to re-aggravate, and you have got to let them heal fully, or else it's just going to keep happening and it's going to snowball. So I really hope that he's going to be a go sooner rather than later, no pun intended, but that has got to heal fully. But for Oklahoma's offense, there was one bright spot, and that's whenever you made the quarterback change. But at the end of this, you still have some real problems. Oklahoma got some of their offensive linemen back, and to be quite frank, in this game, they got whipped. Branson Hickman's a very talented young man, but I watched him get pushed straight back into the quarterback on more than one occasion. That Oklahoma offensive line had it taken to them. At the end of the game, Tennessee had 3 sacks, 11 tackles for loss. Until Oklahoma finds any semblance of a running game, it's going to be very hard to figure your offense out. And so that's why I say I point the finger at multiple different areas. I point the finger at injuries, which is unfortunate. It's out of Oklahoma's control. I point the finger at quarterback play because Jackson Arnold, quite frankly, hasn't been playing very well. And the interception he threw was a continuation of a problem we talked about before. We have talked about since Arizona, and I get it, he's a young quarterback, but man, when he finds his target, he doesn't look anywhere else. He zones in on that guy, and it does not matter what's around him. He stares them down, and he fires. Well, if we go back and watch the interception he threw on Saturday, there were 3 Tennessee defenders all closing in on that area. Didn't matter. And once again, he's a young quarterback. Young quarterbacks make mistakes, but at the same time, you can't be a one-read guy. And in that one read, you're staring down your wide receiver. Now, credit to him, he went from reading the left side of the field to the right side of the field, but then the problem occurred that once he found his guy, it didn't matter what was going on around him. He was throwing that ball. Then you make the quarterback change. And that absolutely did give a spark to Oklahoma's offense. But once again, we arrive at this. You don't have a running game. If in SEC play you're going to average under 1.5 yards per carry, you're going to have a bad time. That's where I really need to see Oklahoma's offense figure it out, put something together, and go forward. Because once again, I do think that part of this story is Tennessee's defense is very good. And I am not taking away from that. If you are a Tennessee fan watching this video, please don't think, oh, now he's saying that this win doesn't mean anything because Oklahoma. No. That's not what we're doing here. This was a good win. On the road, Nico's a young quarterback. Oklahoma's defense, I mean, they played well. They played real well. You got a good win. But like I said, multiple things can be true at the same time. This is a good win. But OU, you have got a lot to figure out. When I was talking about what I didn't like for OU's offense, we talked about injuries. We talked about the quarterback play has left a lot to be desired. The complete lack of a running game, but play calling. Right now, I have zero idea what Oklahoma's identity is. And it's all well and good to say, okay, well, that's because of injuries. You still have to play the game. Even when you have injuries, you still have to play the game. And I have no idea what Seth has this offensive identity as. I'm more confused every time I watch. I haven't been impressed with the play calling all season from Oklahoma. I haven't been impressed at all. So at the end of this, Oklahoma, their defense did everything they were asked. They held as long as you could against a really high octane, explosive offense. They did everything they could. Oklahoma's offense did not hold up their end of the bargain at all. Not even close. And if in SEC play, you're not going to be able to average over 1.5 yards per carry, that's going to be a problem. And it's easy to sit here and say that, oh, that was just against Tennessee. Oklahoma hasn't had a running game all year. They haven't figured out the running game all year. Not against a bad Temple team, not against a bad Houston team, not against a good Tulane team. I'll give you that. I think Tulane's a solid squad. I know Tulane has 2 losses. It came against 2 Power 5 opponents. I think Tulane's a pretty darn good football team, especially for their level. They're just one of those teams that they'll play you tough. That's my truth. And then against a really good Tennessee team. Through all of that, you're averaging under 4 yards per carry for the year. And this is an OU running back room that has the talent. And once again, I understand you've got a banged up offensive line. That's a problem. But at a certain point, something's got to be figured out because the games have to be played. And whether you have injuries or not, something has got to give. Maybe with the addition of Hawkins, this Oklahoma offense will find their identity. But at the end of this game, I have nothing but praise for Oklahoma's defense. I'm not even saying they played perfect. I'm saying you held up your end of the bargain. When your offense gave you nothing, they kept you on the field all night long. For Oklahoma's offense, something's got to give. You have Auburn next week. Personally, I'd roll with the young kid Hawkins because when I watched Auburn, they kind of struggled against a mobile quarterback. And yes, Jackson Arnold and Michael Hawkins can both run the football, so you do have some flexibility there. But you have to figure out some way to put offense together. It has got to come about sooner as opposed to later, no pun intended, because SEC play is here. And one of the last things you wanted to do was be figuring this out in SEC play. So this is just very unfortunate. And I understand, I don't want to come across as harsh. Injuries are a big reason for this. And I completely concede that. But if you're Oklahoma's offense, injuries or not, you have got to formulate some sort of a game plan that's going to help out your defense. Because right now, it's almost entirely one-sided. For Tennessee, good win. Good win. Like I said, I hope this video isn't coming across as dismissive to what Tennessee did. But there are multiple truths that can exist simultaneously. That Tennessee had a good showing, but that there's been a lot left to be desired from this Oklahoma offense every week until now. And that's something that's got to change. Hop down to the comments. Let me know what you were thinking about this game. We will be discussing it further 5:30 p.m. Central Standard Time this evening on the Round Table. You don't want to miss it. Let me know what you're thinking. That's it. See ya.